County.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hello and welcome to HealthLink, a program connecting home, community, and healthcare. My name is Carol Merton, and today I'm delighted to welcome Jackie Ralph, who's joining us from the Canadian Mental Health Association, and certainly Grey Bruce. And Jackie is here to talk to us today about the upcoming Mental Health Week and mental health strategies during our COVID-19 lockdown restrictions. Jackie, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself just to tell our viewing audience about you.
Excellent. So my name is Jackie, and I work at Canadian Mental Health Association, Grey Bruce Mental Health and Addiction Services.
Whoa, that's why you're introducing yourself, because obviously it's too much for me to say.
So I always say there's 11 words in our name, but don't worry about remembering all 11 words. Just look for our logo right there.
Yeah,
and
you're upside down with the logo.
I always say, think of it as a green square with me disco dancing.
Oh, good idea. I like that. So Jackie, I know that we're heading into Mental Health Week, which is, I believe, May 3rd to May 9th. And there's a slogan, #GetReal, but there's more to it. So I'm wondering if you'd mind filling us in a little bit about what you're focusing on during Mental Health Week.
Absolutely. So the Get Real hashtag has actually been around for a couple of the last mental health weeks. And it's just, I think it's so relevant to what we are in right now, even though it wasn't created with a pandemic in mind originally. Oh. And the whole idea was that when we get asked how are we doing, to consider getting real on our answer. And so the whole idea being that sometimes when people ask how we're doing, we're quick to maybe go, oh, I'm good, or I'm fine, or I'm okay. And the whole idea of the week for the last couple of years was just expand the answer, that it's totally okay to say I'm okay, but if there's more to it, give the more to it. And just, it's okay to say, I'm doing good, but whew, I tell you, by the end of 10 Zooms in a day, my eyes are buggy. I have a headache. So totally, as much as you can, be honest with the answer. And then what we find is people will tend to be honest with their answers back to us. And that's what we want. That's how we make connections. And this year, what they added on top of it is name it, don't numb it. And I thought that was really valuable as well, in that we're all carrying around these extra feelings right now. And we're seeing that so much, in social media, in the comments of different things, in stories that are shared online. And there's a lot of big feelings being carried. And so the whole idea of name it, don't numb it is that when we hold feelings inside, it's like a pop bottle. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's eventually going to come out. But maybe it would be less big if we let it out at the beginning. And that's where that whole concept is coming from. And the other big part this year they're really pushing is, and I really appreciated how they put that. Mental health is something we can protect or something we can lose. And I really appreciated that sentiment as well, in that the more we focus on it and give it that time and that effort and that energy, the more likely we are to protect our mental health. And I think of, again, the timing is perfect because we just had frost, right? And all of us were like rushing out and covering all of our brand new tulips that just came up, and our daffodils were like covering them because we want to protect them from the frost. And I think that's gosh, it's just like my mental health. If I know there's something big happening, big coming up, I'm going to gather everything I can around me to protect my mental health during this time, such as lockdown number 3, such as critical thresholds, such as uncertainty. So I just appreciate the timing of Mental Health Week and all the messages that are coming out around it.
Absolutely. Now, I know there's some key messages, and one that captured me was the statement, good mental health isn't about being happy all the time. Do you mind elaborating a little bit about what that means? Because people think, well, if you're happy, you're in a good mental health state. But that's really not exactly it.
You got it. You got it. Because again, it all comes down to all of our feelings. We can't be happy all at a time. And because if we are, we're missing out on stuff. Like we're missing out on uncomfortable things. It means we have maybe missed out on a relationship that we never gave ourselves a chance to. So I'm like you. I really appreciated that. The sign that our mental health is good is not that we're happy 24/7. A sign that our mental health is good is that we're able to handle all of those other feelings that come in and out of our lives, and that eventually we can get back to our happy, normal selves. But to do that, we still have to navigate those feelings. And what tools can we learn and practice to navigate any of those big feelings that come along?
So, and I'm going to go through the bullet points because they really did speak to me. Like I thought they were so good. Even if we try to push our difficult feelings down, they don't go away. And it comes out one way or the other. And I know you and I have had a little bit of an email discussion earlier.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about anger and how it's starting. People at first, I think with COVID, there was a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of worries about money and kids. And now with the third lockdown, the reactions are quite intense, and they seem to be blowing off steam and angry, which looks a bit different than at the beginning of COVID. Would you say you've noticed that as well?
Yeah, and that's just it. Once we're 13, 14 months into this, it's given the kettle a long time to get steamy, and that's what we're definitely seeing. So I never mean to minimize feelings when I say this, but to me, the best way I think of anger is like a fart. Like the more we keep it in, the bigger it's going to get, and it's going to come out eventually, and it's probably going to be that much worse than if we just let a silent one out when it first starts to bubble. You just gotta let it out. And anger, if we think of it almost like a hot potato, sometimes anger feels uncomfortable and we don't like it. And so we tend to give it away like a hot potato. Here, you have it. I don't want it. And anger is one of those things we really got to lean into, because it's our amygdala's way of letting us know something is wrong. It's actually our protective factor. That's where anger comes from. It's like this red flag. Something's not cool. But by like it says, by pushing it down, it doesn't disappear. It just sticks around in there and bubbles away. So we want to learn to lean into our anger. And again, that's that whole idea of name it, don't numb it. Why am I angry? Where is it coming from? And how is it affecting me? And what can I do to help with that feeling?
And sometimes an automatic response to anger would be, for lack of a better phrase, I call it dump it and run. Dump it onto somebody else. Be angry at somebody else and think it's going to go away. But then it doesn't go away, because sometimes you feel bad because you got angry, and sometimes the other person then gets angry, and then there's a whole domino effect.
Yeah.
Now, I know you have toolkits, and I'm wondering if there's something that you could mention about what can people do when, even afterwards they say, oh, I shouldn't have typed that, or I shouldn't have, there's so many shouldn't haves. What would you suggest to people around coping?
You totally talked about right up my alley. A story I often share with the students is that's exactly it. Sending a message back, because I think about sometimes an email that'll come through, and I'll be like, God, why did they do that? Or what? Gosh, what were they thinking? And I just want to get on the keyboard and just tell them what I think about that whole idea. And then I tell the students that what I do instead is I have a whole bunch of videos saved on my bookmarks bar on my computer, and I'll watch a video that I know will help me just take a breath, or help me laugh, or help me get centered again. And then I'll approach the email, and I'll find that I'm much better at crafting my response by having watched that video. And when we think about a toolbox or a toolkit, it's kind of almost like a tool belt. You gotta find what fits in your own pockets, and the only way you have of creating that tool belt is to try out those tools for fit. Maybe I got that hammer and I tried that hammer and it was too big for me. I do better on a smaller hammer. Well, that's the whole thing. You got to try these things out. When you find something that works, man, you hold on to it and you call it into play whenever you need it. I have, my husband does, where you sit and you breathe for 40 meditation. He does meditation. And I'm a bit of a chatty bean, and meditation and me aren't necessarily the right tools, but he found me a 2.5-minute meditation that's all swear words. And boy, that is the perfect tool for me. And so 2.5 minutes of being quiet, being centered, taking my deep breaths, and just using those words in the meditation. And then off I go. And then I'm fine.
Yeah. So one size doesn't fit all, but it's okay to try a variety until you figure out it works. The image of people with lightning bolts and flames coming out of their fingertips, I always think if you think you're going to be hot when you're touching the keys, back off. Just no keyboard warriors. Back off, people. Yeah, until you can at least touch them without the flames coming out of your fingertips, because there's a lot of flame out there right now. A lot of flame.
There's a lot of feelings instead of facts, right?
Exactly. And we are part of a community, and eventually when we do see people face to face, it might be hard to face somebody you've just sent a flaming email to.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Yes. Yeah. So, we talked about bottling up emotions, but what if I've tried the slow release, I've tried the tools, and it's just not cutting it for me. I just know it's just tough. What would you say then? What else can I do?
So, Carol, you said it perfectly, in that I've tried all that and it isn't really working. I'm not seeing the result that I would have wanted. To me, I have a check mark list that I move between things that I do myself, self-helps, and structured help. And so when I think about what those checky marks are, it's gone on a long time. It's not getting better by itself, and it's now negatively affecting my day-to-day life. That, to me, are the check marks where I would then graduate from just working on my own tool belt to now finding some more structured support. That's when I need to really reach out to those top lines that are out there. Looking into getting my own counselor, using the Wellness Together tool from the government of Ontario, Canada. It really is a really great tool, and it takes your temperature for you. So it's wellnesstogether.ca. It's just a few questions, and it gives you a color. I'm sure we're all finished with colors right now, but it gives you a green, yellow, and red. And in the green, it says, you know what? doing what you're doing. It's working. The yellow is, maybe it's time to either try a different tool or expand your tool belt. And the red is, you know what? Do not pass go, do not collect $200. The time for self-help is kind of past, and maybe now it's time to reach out to someone in your community.
And the theme for sure with this mental health week is understanding our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It's not judging we should or shouldn't feel this way.
Right.
It's just understand about the emotions. I was amazed at the statistics that 40% of Canadians say their mental health has deteriorated since the onset of the pandemic. So just over a year, 40%.
Yeah.
So that's a huge, huge number.
Yeah. I used to say,
Mm-hmm.
I used to say when we talked about mental health, I used to compare it like a triangle. And I'd say, the big part at the bottom, that's the majority of us doing okay. And then as you get to the top, when the triangle gets a little skinnier, that's kind of, those who are kind of maybe struggling with some extra things, or those of us living with a mental illness, whether we have diagnosed it or not. And what COVID did was it took our triangle and it flipped it right upside down. And so now we seem to have less people on the bottom that are doing okay, and more people on the top who are really struggling. And so you absolutely said it right. The statistics are really painting a different shape of the triangle.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been reading about, and people are finding it hard to find the words to describe how they feel. Because it's different in some ways. And are you hearing the same?
And you know what? And that was the reason why the start of this year, we used to, when we do the presentations in the classrooms, we'd really kind of lean into or pull up the feelings in Inside Out. Do you remember the Inside Out movie? And you had joy, and you had disgust, and you had fear, right? The purple and the green one. Cute little movie that just did such a great job of talking about those big primary feelings. But this year, what we did was we started adding in the feelings wheel. So if your folks are listening at home, they could totally Google it. It's called the feelings wheel, because what we found was exactly what you said. Our feelings didn't always necessarily fit into one of those kind of 4 categories: mad, sad, glad, and scared. And so the feelings wheel was really helpful to a lot of people going, well, I'm not angry. Oh, but I'm so disappointed. That's exactly the feeling I'm having right now. Or I'm not scared, but I'm definitely concerned about things. And so when just having that feelings wheel really helped people kind of narrow down the feeling that they were having. And again, it's all about when you can name it, you can talk about it.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, that we, this is the time to say we're struggling, and there's no harm in voicing it. It's important because obviously others are, if it's 40% at least. There was a different phrase I heard last week. It was one I haven't heard in a long time. And it was to describe the kind of feeling of low energy and just hard to get going, and just, that sort of depressive, not depression, but depressive, hard to drag around another day. And they called it languishing. We're languishing these days. And I thought, I haven't heard that term for a long time, but it's almost like, you should have the energy to do something, but it's just way too much because nothing else has changed. I can't go shopping, can't go. And I thought that was a whole different word for an emotion that I haven't heard in a long time. And that was quite unique for me. But I just thought I would share that word with you, Jackie.
Awesome. I wrote it down.
I don't know if it would fit on a feeling wheel, though. So one of the things that I'm picking out from the bullet points, because there's so much good information about this, that expressing so-called negative emotions can have a positive impact on our relationships. Now, help me understand that, because usually, if you're really out there and negative, I always thought it worked the other way. People say, I'm not going near that person. All they're doing is talking negatively.
But again, it's all around the idea that if we don't let it out, it gets twice as big. So that's really where they're coming at that from, that the more we can be authentic with somebody, and then we maybe hear from them that they've been feeling something similar, and you had been adding shame on top of yourself because you were feeling negative, and then that gets added on. But now all of a sudden you shared that negative feeling that was really uncomfortable and really bottled up in there, and then someone else shared with you too that, oh my gosh, like for 5 months now, and all of a sudden that negative feeling, instead of shame being added to it, is acceptance and validation, and that's what takes that uncomfortable feeling and makes it easier to carry around in your pocket all day.
So I wonder if you can fill us in. We've talked about emotions, which is great, and that's the intention around the week coming up. So what would you like to say to people about what they can do to tune in? What information should they look for? What's going to happen May 3rd?
The best word of advice around this whole pandemic was around our routines, as much as we can, to stick to our routine, because we need that as human beings. And when our routine gets thrown off, the rest of us gets thrown off too, because this is such muscle memory. Our brains like to have things the same each day in terms of our sleep and our meals and how much exercise we get. And when that routine changes, we change. And it's always those changes in how we're feeling physically and mentally that are our check engine light. That's our sign that something isn't kosher. And again, the reason for those changes could be anything, but if it's mental health related, we want to get in quicker than later. So the earlier we can recognize, gosh, that I've gone 3 days in a row with only this much sleep or with this feeling, and maybe before I get to the 4th day in a row with that, I'm gonna see what I can learn or who I can talk to about.
Yeah. Now, we know that the challenges of COVID are still with us. We've got a little bit longer to go. Do you think the community will people have enough resilience and stamina to make it? And then what will happen when those barriers get lifted from COVID? Sometimes when you get a release of restriction, it can also be stressful.
You got it. And I think to me, it's just all about balance. Right now, our news feeds are very out of balance. They're full of scary stories and concerning things. And it's all about trying to balance that information out with OSHARE doing such good work. And the kids in the school doing such great things. So for us, that was why we did the Good Deeds project there right before the spring break, was to try and generate some of these good news stories that we could push out and say, good things are still happening in this time, and they're still going to happen going forward. And I just applaud all the folks out there that are using their voices to balance the negativity and positivity, because we're still going to have both going forward. Like you said, it's just making sure we've maintained that balance.
And that's really key, because it is true. When we see statistics and we see information about a variety of things related to COVID, sometimes it seems like the negatives way outweigh the positives. What I'm hearing you say is you almost have to be intentional to try and insert several positive things within your daily routine, as if it's an offset to the negative. Yeah. We need a positive barometer is what we need.
Yes, Yes, just fill that tank back up again. Anything you can do to fill that bucket back up when it's super empty. And you can follow along. There's different pages on Facebook that are all just good news related. You know, just those good humans that are out there paying people's bills, or buying the coffee in the Tim Hortons line, and we need to read those stories. And like you said it so well, Carol, is being intentional with it.
Yeah. So definitely seek the positive, and the negative's already there. We don't have to look for it. It's right in front of us.
Right there.
More than we want, but to definitely seek the positive. So during the week of May 3rd to 9th, are there any special events, anything that you think will be going on for Mental Health Week?
So we are now jam-packed full. We're doing lots of speaks out and about, and we're taking advantage, to be honest, of this ability to do things online. And some of our partner branches have planned a whole bunch of really great talks. So we're literally just going to be pushing them all out, and all of these different speaks you can be jumping in on and listening in on. And those will all be on our CMHA Facebook pages, and you can follow along and go, oh, that one really resonates with me. I'm going to click in and listen on that one. And we're just really excited that we're already booked for that whole week with presentations. So that, which never happened. And that to me is the biggest takeaway of all this, is folks are looking for these messages, and we're happy to jump in and do our best to share them.
And that's critical, getting the message out, and also to be able to do it using the technology so that people can be within their own comfortable place, which is important, be safe at home, and still be able to get the message out. So how are you doing, Jackie, in all of this, in the last minute or so we have of the program?
Well, I tell you, I was feeling the effects, and this morning I get in and I open the first batch of letters from the students in Grey Bruce that they wrote to people living in our community with mental illness. COVID is making everything a lot tougher, and just remember that we're going to get through this together. Keep your head held high and keep going. I hope you have a great day. Now, if that doesn't work for you, I don't know.
And Jackie, I can't say anything better than that for the close of the show. I want to thank you so much for sharing and for being here with us. Always a pleasure to talk to you. You take care. And thank you to our viewing audience as well. Please tune in again for information about programs and services available to you and your family. Stay safe, take care, care for each other. Thank you.
Call the Rogers TV Viewer Response Line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
A province-wide stay-at-home order is currently in effect. Limit trips outside the home. Remain in your local community and work from home if you are able. Visit the province's website for more information.
The regulars, the guys who keep this place in business. Last week, they had something to celebrate. Jason had just finished university. So they toasted his profs, his TAs, his old roommates. Well, they toasted just about everyone.